students, good afternoon to you all. Wishing you great health and wellness. I'm pleased to welcome you again in this class. So we shall be continuing the same topic that we have been discussing for last couple of lectures. So it is the change of sentences from simple to complex, complex to compound, and vice versa. So in the previous class we learned about what a sentence in regards to compound, complex or simple is actually. There I told you, you might find some sentences which are quite short, and on the other hand you will see there are some sentences that are quite longer comparatively, because some sentences will be made up of different clauses or separate sentences. And I told you about the clauses too, that what a clause is. A clause is just a smaller sentence. Just like a sentence has a verb, it has a subject and a predicate. A clause too has the same thing. It too has a verb in it, and it should be finite. So in any of the clauses, it is required to have a verb in it. And I differentiated between the finite and non-finite verbs also in the previous lecture. Finite verb is one that changes when there is a change in the form of the tense and it aligns with the person or the number used in the sentence. Such as if there is a third person singular subject, in case of an assertive sentence, the verb will be plural, like he goes to school. If it is they, if it is we, if it is you, or if it is any of the plural subjects there, you will use go there, go to school. If it is he, if it is Ram, if it is Balram, it is Ghanshyam, or any of the names of the people, and it must be in singular one. So here you see the verb is used in plural because you have third person singular subject here. And when you have third person plural subject or first person or second person, so it doesn't matter there the verb will be singular. You won't put an S or ES after the verb there. So it means a finite verb aligns with the number of the subject also, or with the person of the subject, whether it is first person, second person, or third person. Then we talked about or discussed about the non-finite verbs too. And in non-finite verbs, you learned about the kinds of it. It was infinitives first, and there you have two kinds of infinitives there. One is to infinitive and another is bare infinitive. A bare infinitive is used without to, and to infinitive for obvious reasons is used after to there. And both of them will be used in the base form, means in the first form. Then you have gerunds, and gerunds are those words or the ing form of verbs which act or which function as a noun in a sentence. These are the gerunds. And then you have participles, and the two are segregated into different parts. You have present participle, then you have past participle, then perfect participle. So all these participles function as adjectives, like nouns, gerunds act as nouns, participles act as adjectives in the sentences. So a sentence or a clause must necessarily have a finite verb in it. Finite verb means that changes according to the tense, according to the person or the number. If it is a non-finite verb, it will not be considered. Then the other thing, when it comes to the compound sentence, there we learn that a compound sentence is made up of two or more independent clauses. It means all the clauses must be independent in their meaning and they will be joined by a coordinating conjunction there. And which are the coordinating conjunctions? These are or, and, nor, but, yet, so. These are the coordinating conjunctions. And a complex sentence is joined by a subordinating conjunction like although, though, then, because, as. So these are some of the subordinating conjunctions. Now, today too we shall be discussing some of the sentences here which will be changed from compound to complex or complex to simple structure. Suppose I have written a statement I saw a beggar at the station. So this is a sentence which is a simple one. It is a simple statement. Like, I saw a beggar at the station. You usually find generally there is just one verb used there and one finite verb it is. It is a simple sentence and it can be called a clause 2. I saw a beggar at the station. If you convert it to the compound sentence now, what you will do, you'll have to put two separate clauses now and both of the clauses must be independent. And if we have to change it into the complex one or we have to pen down the complex sentence there, what is required there that one sentence must be an independent one and another sentence must be dependent. That is what you call a complex sentence. Now, I will change it into a compound sentence. So it means you'll have to write down two clauses now. I saw a beggar and he was at the station. Now you can easily identify the two clauses in the single sentence here. The first one is I saw a beggar and the next clause here is this one. I saw a beggar, this makes an independent meaning and this too if said without this part of the sentence will make a complete meaning. He was at the station. So neither of the sentences here are dependent upon any of the part of the sentence. So both of the clauses are independent. So when two independent clauses are joined by a coordinating conjunction here to make one single sentence, it is called a compound sentence. Now, when you make it into or convert it into the complex sentence, what is required there you will have one subordinate clause and one independent clause. Both of the clauses will not be independent now because it is a complex sentence and in a complex sentence one clause is subordinate and the other is dependent. It will be like I saw a beggar who was at the station. Now find out the dependent clause or the subordinate clause out of this. Here is this one. Who was at the station? Like if you speak this much or you tell this to anybody without this part, who was at the station? So I'll not be able to understand what you actually are trying to convey to him. If you put it all together and speak it out, I saw a beggar who was at the station. Now it makes a proper thought, it makes a complete sense now and it makes a complete meaning. So it becomes a complex sentence. So for a complex sentence, what you'll have to mind that is you'll find one clause as independent and the other will be dependent. And independent is one that does not depend upon other clause for a complete meaning, like this. I saw a beggar. This is an independent clause. It doesn't require to be dependent upon any other part. If you say this clause here, who was at the station, this is dependent, or this is a subordinate clause, and it depends upon this part of the sentence or upon this clause to make a proper meaning. Okay. Now, just take another sentence likewise. I saw a bird who was sitting on a tree. Which sentence it is now? I saw a bird who was sitting on a tree. Is it a simple, compound, or complex sentence? I have two clauses. I saw a bird. This is one clause, and it is joined by a subordinate conjunction. It is not a coordinating conjunction, it is a subordinate conjunction. Who was sitting on a tree. So it is a complex sentence because one clause you will find in this sentence is dependent and the other is independent. Which one is dependent and which one is independent here? This clause is independent, or this is the principal clause. Principal, I have told you. It can be named as principal clause, main clause, or independent clause. And another one, it can be subordinate or dependent clause. The first clause used here is an independent clause. It is the principal clause. It is independent because it doesn't depend upon that clause to make a complete meaning, but that sentence or that clause here used in the sentence is dependent upon this one. So that is a subordinate clause. And this sentence altogether is a complex sentence because one clause here is independent and another is dependent. Now if you change this into a compound one, what should you do now? You will have to write two independent clauses now. As a compound sentence consists two independent clauses and it is usually joined by a coordinating conjunction, or somewhere you will find just a semicolon there that will be separating the two clauses. I saw a bird and it was sitting on a tree. See now, you have two independent clauses. And what is a clause? I must tell you again. How can you identify a clause, or how can you separate it from that of a phrase? A phrase will not have a verb and a clause as a verb. And remember one thing, it must be having a finite verb in it. Okay? I saw a bird. This is one clause. And it was sitting on a tree. There is another clause here. Both of these clauses are independent and both of the clauses are having finite verbs. Finite verbs. This one, saw, as this can be changed into separate forms, different forms. When you convert it into some other tenses, it can be used as see, can be used as saw, and then it can be used as have seen or had seen. There again, was is a verb. There is a finite one. Was sitting, is sitting, or so this sentence is a compound one because in this sentence you will find two clauses and both of these clauses are independent. And now if you want this sentence to change into a simple one, how it will be now? It means there must be just one finite verb now. You can't use two finite verbs, then there will be two clauses in a single sentence. And a simple sentence is the one which has just one clause in it and one finite verb. It must be a simple sentence, means it must be just one sentence there. If you use two finite verbs in a single sentence, it will become either a complex sentence or a compound one. In a simple sentence, it must contain just one finite verb only. Now you need to put one finite verb here and you will write it as I saw a bird sitting on a tree. See, now in this sentence, I have changed it into the simple one. You will find only one finite verb in it and there is no other finite verb. Sitting on a tree, that is non-finite verb. Again, which kind of non-finite verb it is? It is a participle. Which participle? Particularly present participle. It works as an adjective. Okay? So this is the participle here, this is not a verb. The verb here only is this one and it is the finite verb. Now take this sentence. He was ill, but he went to school. Which sentence is? Is it a compound, simple or complex one? He was ill, but he went to school. So you can see it has been joined by a coordinating conjunction here, and both of the clauses here you'll find are independent in their meaning. So it is obviously which sentence? A compound sentence. Now if you change it into a complex one, what you need to do there, you will have to put one clause as dependent and another will be independent here. So it will be changed like, though he was ill, he went to school. Now, there again are two clauses here, as a complex sentence also has two clauses, but what makes the difference there and what? Yeah, in the compound sentence, you will find both of the clauses as independent, but in a complex sentence, both of the clauses will not be the independent one. One of them must be dependent or one of them must be subordinate. So here, which one is subordinate clause? It is the first one. Though he was ill, you cannot say this part of the sentence alone without adding this one. If you speak to someone like though he was ill, if you are saying someone this part of the sentence only, he will not be able to understand you completely. Though he was ill, then what will be expected some few more words from you to get a proper meaning. So though he was ill, it means it is a subordinate clause. He went to school. Now it completes the meaning of this sentence. Though he was ill, he went to school. So one subordinate clause we have in this sentence and the other is independent or the main clause. So what it becomes now? It becomes a complex sentence now. And if you will change it into a simple one, there what you will have to do now, just put one finite verb in it and converting the other section, the other part of the statement into a non-finite one, either by the adding the participles or the gerunds. So it can be just, no, he was ill, he went to school. You have two clauses here, so it cannot be a simple sentence. There, again, you have two clauses, so it again cannot be a simple sentence, because a simple sentence must contain a single clause. And what is required there for a single clause? It is one finite verb. So, in spite of his illness, he went to school. In spite of his illness, there is no finite verb in this sentence now, or in this part of the statement. In spite of his illness, he went to school. Don't get confused or confuse it with a complex sentence. This is not a complex sentence, it is just a simple sentence, because you have just one finite word used here in this sentence. He went to school. It is only this one. I told you earlier that a simple sentence is made up of just one clause, and a clause is made up of just one finite verb. It doesn't matter how many non-finite verbs you use there in a single sentence, but you must be using just one finite verb. So there is only one finite verb here. Can you find another finite verb used in this sentence or in any part of this one? In spite of his illness? No. You just need to make an interchange of the words here. And I have taught you many times how to change the words from one part of the speech to other. How to change the words from nouns to adjectives, or from adjectives to adverbs, or from adverbs to verbs, etc. So you must be acknowledged with this, and you must be well versed with changing the words first from one part of the speech to the other. So it will be useful for you in such cases. Here, he was ill. So ill, this word has been changed into the noun here. So ill here is an adjective, and illness becomes a noun. You just converted it here without putting a finite verb, so that it remains a simple sentence. In spite of his illness, you will find no verb here, and there you will find a verb, and that is finite one. So it becomes a simple sentence. So again, I am telling you the same thing, that a simple sentence is made up of just one clause. Okay, and in a clause, there you will find a single finite verb used, and you must be able to differentiate between the finite and non-finite verbs by now. We have discussed it already in the previous class quite clearly. And a compound sentence will be made up of two or more independent clauses. It is not compulsory that you will have only two clauses there. There can be more than two clauses too, but usually you will find two of them. And how many clauses, doesn't matter how many clauses have been used there in a compound sentence. The condition for those clauses is that all of them must be in independent sense. All of the clauses must be independent in their meanings. They must be the principal clauses. That is what makes a compound sentence. Then comes your complex sentence. What is required there in a complex sentence, and how will you identify a complex sentence? That is, you will have one independent clause or the principal clause there, and you will have one or more dependent clauses. Means the clause that depends upon the principal clause to give a proper or a complete meaning. So let me tell you another example of the interchange of the sentences on the same pattern like I mentioned it earlier. He is poor, but he is honest. Which sentence it is now? You find the two clauses there, and both of the clauses are joined by a coordinating conjunction. So it is, of course, a compound sentence. See, he is for one clause and he is honest another clause. Both of the clauses are independent in their meanings. They don't depend upon any other clause to complete the meaning here. So they are both independent clauses and they are joined by a coordinating conjunction. So it becomes a compound sentence. Now when you change this into a complex one, there what you will do now, you will put one clause as dependent and another as independent. Now it will be like, though he is poor and in comma, he is honest. Here, you just put a subordinated conjunction here. So a conjunction is not only put in between two clauses or two statements or two words. So here it can be used in the beginning of a statement too, like this, though and although, however. So these are the subordinating conjunction. They can be used in the beginning of the sentences also. Though he is poor, this clause is a dependent clause. This is a subordinate clause and this one is independent clause and this is the principal clause. Now it becomes a complex sentence because one of the clauses here has been put as an independent one and the other is dependent. So that is the criteria for a complex sentence. Now if you change it into a simple statement, then you have to put it into a single clause now so that it becomes a simple sentence. And to keep it in a single clause, what is required? It must contain just one finite verb now. Again, in spite of his, form will be changed into another part of speech and that will be a noun here. So it is poverty. In spite of his poverty, and put a comma there, he is honest. Or you can write it as despite being poor also. Okay? So again you must be well versed with changing the words from one part of the speech to the other, and that will be useful for you in fact many of the places, like here. Though he is poor, he is honest. This is a subordinate clause here. Because this is a clause because it contains a finite verb here. That again contains a finite verb that can be changed into separate forms. But here, in spite of his poverty, it doesn't contain a finite verb, so it cannot be a clause now. It is just a phrase because it does not have a finite verb. It is a phrase only. He is honest. This part of the statement contains a verb, and this is just an addition to this. This is a phrase. So it again becomes a simple sentence. So a simple sentence is made up of just one clause, and in a clause you will have just one finite verb, like you have in this case. At the end, what I have mentioned here, it has just one finite verb, and the rest part is just an additional information, or it is just a phrase. It is not a clause. Then see another. When she heard the news, she fainted. Identify the clauses now. Both the clauses here are not independent. One of them is a dependent clause. One of the clauses is independent or principal clause, and one of them is a dependent clause. When she heard the news, it is the dependent one because it doesn't give you a complete meaning without adding that part of the statement. When she heard the news, she fainted. So she fainted is an independent or a principal clause. So this is a complex sentence because one clause you have as independent one and the other is a dependent clause, so it becomes a complex sentence. If you convert it into the compound one, you need to put it into two independent clauses. It will be as she heard the news. She heard the news, and put a coordinated conjunction here in between and write another clause here that is independent. So now both of the clauses become independent in their meanings. She heard the news. It doesn't depend upon that part now to complete the meaning. It becomes an independent clause. And here, she fainted again is an independent clause. So two independent clauses when joined by a coordinated conjunction become a compound sentence. And when this sentence is changed into a simple one, there again you need to put it into a one clause. It will be as on heard the news, she fainted. Or she fainted on hearing the news. If it was like she fainted after hearing the news, then it would be a complex sentence. But it is on hearing the news, she fainted, it is a simple sentence. Why? Because it has just one finite verb there. On hearing the news, hearing here has not been used as a verb here. It is just a participle. It is a participle. It doesn't function as a verb here, it functions as something else here. So on hearing the news, she fainted. This is a phrase. And what is required for a statement to become a clause? That is a finite verb. So you know, when you change the statements into the simple ones, there what is required, you just need to put them into a single clause. It means there must be just one finite verb. And a clause is made up of one finite verb, one subject and one predicate, and there will be one finite verb. And a compound sentence is made up of two clauses, or more than two clauses also. But all the clauses must be independent. And a complex sentence is made up of one independent and two or more, or one or more than one dependent clauses or the subordinate clauses. So just practice it at your homes to try to convert the sentences from simple to compound and compound to complex, or from complex to simple. So when you try it hard, and you will be acknowledged, and it will come in handy for you when you practice it for long. So this I think should be enough for today. So we shall be discussing some other topic in the next class. Thank you so much.